And we meet from 7 to 9, and our typical meeting is we open up with a short business meeting. Business meeting is typically over in about 35, 45 minutes. Then we have we try to have a speaker who's be giving a lesson or training on some facet of beekeeping. And it may be anything from candle making, soap making this year, a couple people, and or something that's directly related to bees, such as Keith Tigner, the state apiarist was here telling us how the Delaware make splits. So we do have a goodly training seminar, the training program that goes on and on. And the last 20 minutes of the meeting is a question and answer session, or hopefully if you have specific problems, we do. So I'd highly recommend everybody who wants to be beekeeping. You're going to learn more from other people at other times than you're going to learn today. But you need to have the contacts so that you can, if you see something that's not like you normally see it, you want to talk to somebody, this will be an opportunity to work through the club. Club membership, quite frankly, is dirt cheap. It's $10 a year for a person, $15 a year for an entire family. So let me just pitch the club, and but other than that, the club is strong. We have a good treasury, at least wise, we think it's pretty decent. I mean, hey, 8 years ago there were 12 people, or 6 or 10 people meeting in a room. That was the entire Ashland Bee Club. Prior to then, it was called the Central Virginia Beekeepers East, because there was another club, Central Virginia Beekeepers West. And we got so tired of being confused. Our club goes back into the early 80s, so we've had a long history here. When I became president, my first act 3 years ago was to change the name of the club to be better defined as the Ashland Bee Club. But let's go ahead and get started. The honeybees, it's interesting. This year we had 66 people register. Not all are here yet. Some probably won't show up. We turned away 12 or 15 in the last 2 or 3 days, just that we didn't have space available. This room has supposedly holds 72 people, and we're running close to a right capacity right now. Honeybees, last year particularly, were very much decimated in this physical area. Losses last winter, I'm talking about 2012 to 2013 winter, were unbelievably high, maybe approaching 60% on an average, maybe even higher than that. Personally, we lost about 80%. Now, it's very interesting in nature. Nature always sort of recovers, and so here we have, 3 times the number of beekeepers and taking this class than we normally would have had, so nature is making a recovery. Honeybees have been around from the Egyptian days. We go back, they say that there's more books written about the honeybees second only to the Bible. Honeybees go back to the Egyptian days. The bees are, the reason for this is that prior to the late 1700s, let's be all the way. Prior to the 1700s, where we started having the sugarcane plantations in the Caribbean, there were no concentrated sweeteners, other than a very few. Maybe you had some maple syrup type stuff that wasn't natural. Maple syrup is quite watery, and they have to boil it down to make it. Honey comes out of the hive in this state, as you're well familiar with. It's very concentrated. So the early people, through all these, Egyptians on, everybody loved to have something sweet, and quite frankly, honey was the only answer to it. I don't want to steal too much thunder from other people. We have a whole group of people going to be speaking, but the bees came to America with the colonists. They wanted honey, sweeteners, and they also needed the other biggie, which is one of the reasons honeybees are always raised in monasteries and had a strong tie in there, is that they were wax, beeswax. If you don't have electric lights and you're relying on candles, you need beeswax. So candles, wax, and honey were the two reasons that bees were always carried with the colonists. You know, I can just imagine what it must have been like to ride a boat for a whole month, on a tiny little ship with a couple hives of bees. Must have been a long trip. Our intent today is to cover enough, hopefully get everybody excited, and explain enough that everybody here will have the opportunity to start a hive. Certainly we can't answer all the questions. And quite frankly, if you take 3 beekeepers and ask them 3 different questions, you're going to have more than 5 answers. And everybody has, so much of this is opinions and practice, that old practices that work and experience. So it's really need to have a sounding board, a group of people to work with to help you, pick up, learn the trade. Typically, beekeepers are divided into 3 categories. We have what's called the hobbyist. These are the groups that are, the hobbyist group is by far the largest number of bee groups. Bee people keep bees, but the hobbyists typically carry only less than 50 hives. So that's still, most of the beekeepers in the Ashland group are hobbyists, with the exception of 1 or 2 individuals, and they are what's called as part-timers in the industry. A part-timer is somebody who has a real daytime job and doesn't have to rely upon this for income, but they also have typically commercial ventures, contracts for pollination, where they bring in a lot of hives to a pumpkin farmer, or maybe it's an apple farmer up the valley, or maybe it's a melon grower down along the Deltaville area or whatever. There are a lot of people, not a lot of people, but these people are called part-timers, and they have anywhere from more than 50 hives and probably less than 1,000. And the last group is the commercial beekeepers. These are the people that you hear about on TV that load up a semi-truck of 550 hives and head for California for the almond pollination program. Or they go from Georgia up to Maine to pollinate blueberries and cranberries and apples and all different types of fruits that need pollination. Finally, people will always say the honeybee is a social insect. By that I mean, what are they talking about? The honeybees that we're going to be studying today, the ones that we will be start to raise again in March and April, these bees are doing it for the good of the order. These bees will never, they're going to go out there and gather nectar, ruthlessly for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and produce honey. None of those bees in that hive are doing it for their own sake, because they all will be dead within a few weeks. So all those bees are out there doing it for the social good of the hive. That's what people refer to as honeybees being a social insect. They're doing it not for their own personal gain, but for the gain of the colony. And I think honeybee keepers, by and large, are similar to that. We've talked to most beekeepers, almost all beekeepers you're going to find are very social people. They're willing to help, to go out, to explain why they're doing things. It just kind of goes with the course. So that's all I have for the program for the introduction. Is there anybody that has any questions? Okay, then let me work this machine to get Mike Sandridge as the first speaker.